Gentlemen, so today we're going to move on to another way of solving systems. So this way is called by elimination. So there's two ways to solve systems algebraically. One's by elimination and one's by substitution. So this one's going to be by elimination. So let's take a look at the steps. Again, I think it's really important to have them written down so that if you get stuck on this kind of stuff, you can reference your notes and see what step you need to try next. Okay, so let's take a look at these. So when you have the equations lined up in standard form, you're going to add the two equations together. So then you're adding down the columns. Now, if you did elimination correctly, one of the variables should cancel out. Then you can solve for the remaining variable. And just like you did with substitution, you'll plug that back in to see what the other one is going to be equal to. Okay, so let's take a look at putting this into practice. So what you'll notice about these two equations is that they're set up in standard form. Notice that I have an x column. I have an x column here and a y column here and a number column on the equal sign. Okay, so what we want to look for is we want to have a letter that has the same coefficient and opposite signs. Okay, so if you notice, x has a positive and a negative coefficient of 1. So that means I can go ahead and add down the columns. So let's go ahead and do that. X minus x is going to cancel out to be 0x when you add those together. Next down this column here. Positive 2y minus y is just going to give me positive y. Then I'm going to put my equal sign down there as well. 10 minus 6 is going to give me 4. Well, 0x doesn't mean anything. So then right away I have that y is equal to 4. So now I know that that's what y is equal to. So I can pick an equation above. I'm just going to pick this first one just for fun. Okay, and now I'm going to rewrite out that equation exactly as is. However, instead of writing y, I'm going to write 4 instead. So then I get 2 times 4 is going to be 8. So then I have x plus 8 is equal to 10. So then I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides, and I get that x is equal to 2. So last but not least, I want to write that out as a coordinate point, x and then y. Okay, so then I have 2, 4 as my solution. Let's take a look at number 2. So for number 2, again, we want to make sure we have something with the same coefficient and opposite signs. So I notice that y both have a coefficient of 1. One has a positive sign, one has a negative sign. So that means we can go ahead and we can use elimination. 2x minus 3x is going to be negative x. Y minus y is going to cancel. 4 minus 8 is going to be a negative 4. So then I need to solve for x. So these y's canceled out. 2x minus 3x was negative x. 4 minus 8 is a negative 4. So to solve for x, I need to divide both sides by a negative 1 because I don't want to know what negative x is. I want to know what x is. So divide those out and you get that x is equal to 4. Excuse me. So then, now that I know what x is equal, I need to pick one of these equations to solve for y. It doesn't matter. You can decide. Sometimes I just pick the first one always because that's just my habit. So I'm going to rewrite that equation out exactly as is. But wherever I see an x, I'm going to put a 4 in instead. And that should make it easier for me to solve for y. So 2 times 4 is 8 plus y is equal to 4. And then we're going to go ahead and subtract 8 from both sides. 4 minus 8 is negative 4. So now we have our solution. All we have to do is write it out as a coordinate point x, then y. So we have x, then y, and we want to write that out as a coordinate point. So that right there is our final answer. So if you were to graph those two lines, they should cross at the point 4, negative 4. That's what these mean. So let's take a look at number 3. So for number 3, you should be able to add down the columns and they should cancel out. Okay, because x has the same coefficient and we have a positive and a negative version. So negative 2x plus 2x is going to cancel out to 0x. 3y plus 2y is going to be 5y. Then we're going to put our equal sign. Negative 11 plus 6 is negative 5. So this 0x is going to go away. So then we have 5y is equal to a negative 5. Then we're going to divide both sides by 5. And then we get negative 5 over 5, which is negative 1. So now we know that that's what y is equal to. So where I can pick an equation up here, and I can solve it for x. So I'm just going to use the first one again. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same equation, and I'm going to take y out completely. So I'm writing the equation out exactly as is, but I'm taking y out. Okay, so then I have negative 2x, 3 times a negative 1 is a negative 3 is equal to a negative 11. So now I need to solve this for y. So since this is a negative 3, or x, sorry, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So then I get a negative 2x is equal to a negative 8. Okay, so now since I do that, divide both sides by a negative 2. And since a negative times a negative is a positive, then my answer for x is a positive 4. So we're going to write out that solution, x, y. So we put our x first and then our y. So our solution is 4, negative 1. Let's take a look at number 4. Again, we want to check that we have the same coefficient with the opposite signs. So I notice that the y has both a coefficient of 1 and their opposite signs. So we can go ahead and add down the columns. So x plus 7x is going to give me 8x. Y minus y is going to give me, or negative y plus y is going to give me 0y. And 9 plus 7 is going to give me 16. Well, this 0y is going to cancel, so then I have 8x is equal to 16. So then, to solve for x, I need to divide both sides by 8, and I get that x is equal to 2. So now I know x is equal to 2. So since I know that x is equal to 2, I can take and I can plug in 2 for x up there. I'm going to choose that equation. So wherever I see an x, I'm going to put a 2, and then I'm going to solve the rest of the equation. So I want to solve this for y. So I'm going to start by subtracting 2 from both sides. So then I get a negative y is equal to 7, because 9 minus 2 is 7, but I don't want to know negative y, I want to know what y is. So I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 1, so I get that y is equal to a negative 7. Last but not least, I want to make sure I write that out as a coordinate point, x, y, so I have 2, negative 7 as my final solution for that one. Okay, moving forward, let's take a look at some more of these. So again, we want to make sure we have the same coefficient with an opposite sign. And I'm going to have you guys skip number 5 because it's the exact same as number 4. Let's take a look at number 6. So for number 6, I notice that you have positive 4x and negative 4x. So it's same coefficient, opposite signs. So that means we can go ahead and add down the columns. So negative 4x plus 4x, that's going to cancel out to 0x. 2y minus 3y is going to be a negative y. 8 minus 10 is a negative 2. Well, 0x doesn't mean anything. So right now I have negative y is equal to a negative 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 1. And when I do that, negative divided by a negative is going to become a positive. So I get that y is equal to 2. So now I need to take the fact that y is equal to 2 and I need to plug it into one of the equations up here. You can decide. Again, I always just pick the first one because that's the first one I see. So now I'm going to continue writing out that first equation and I'm going to keep it the exact same. Except where I see a y, I'm going to take that out and I'm going to plug in 2 instead. So then I get a negative 4x plus 4 is equal to 8. So I want to solve for y, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. And then I get a negative 4x is equal to a negative 4. So again, to solve for x, I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 4. And then I get that x is equal to a negative 1. So writing that coordinate point out, we have negative 1, 2, a coordinate point, x, then y. All right. Let's take a look at number 7. So to solve number 7, again, we want to make sure we have same coefficient with opposite signs. So what I notice is that the s both have a 5 for the coefficient. One's positive and one's negative. So I can go ahead and add down the columns. 3r minus 2r just gives me r. Negative 5 plus 5 is going to cancel out, but we can write it out just to make sure we know. Negative 35 plus 30, when you add that together, you're actually going to get a negative 5. Well, 0s doesn't mean anything, so I'm going to get that r is equal to a negative 5. So now I know that that's what r is equal to. So I can take one of these equations and I can plug r back in for one of these equations. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug it back in for this equation right here. So then I have 3, and now instead of writing r, I'm going to plug in that negative 5 instead. Minus 5s is equal to negative 35. Well, 3 times a negative 5 is negative 15. Minus 5s is equal to a negative 35. Then I'm going to add 15 to both sides. And I get a negative 5s is equal to a, 20. A negative 20, I'm sorry. Then, to solve for s, I need to divide both sides by a negative 5. And when I do that, negative divided by a negative is a positive, so I get a positive 4. So because it's not x and y, let's just write it out in alphabetical order in our coordinate point, which is negative 5, 4. So number 8 turns into an icky number, so we're just going to go ahead and skip that problem. We're also going to skip number 9, so the only problem we have left to do is number 10. So let's take a look at this one. So I noticed that negative 2m and positive 2m. So I have same coefficient, opposite signs. So I can go ahead and I can add down the columns. 2m minus 2m, well, that's going to cancel out my m's. Negative 5 plus 7, that's actually going to be a positive 2m. That's the same as 7 minus 5. And negative 6 plus 14 is going to be a positive 8. So then I end up with 2n is equal to 8, since that 0m is going to cancel out. So then I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and I get that n is equal to 4. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug in what I know n is equal to. And again, I'm just going to pick that first equation. So I'm going to write that first equation out exactly as is, but wherever I see an n, I'm going to put in a 4 instead. So then I have 2m minus 20 is equal to negative 6. So then I'm going to add 20 to both sides. And I get that 2m is equal to 14. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So I get that m is equal to 7. So again, in our coordinate point, let's just put in alphabetical order. So we get for our solution 7, 4 in our coordinate point. So that concludes your note video. Go ahead and show Ms. Humbert your completed note sheet once you're done. Thanks for listening.